Well, greetings, friends. I greet you in the love and peace of our Lord Jesus Christ as I welcome you once again with my good buddy, Steve.Autrey, soon to be the Reverend Dr. Steve.Autrey, still working on that, but good buddy and good friend, always a good time for me to have an opportunity to be in any kind of conversation with
Well,
Steve, and I'm grateful for today. How you
yeah,
doing,
it's
man?
good to see you, Paul. Good to talk with you. And uh, yeah, it's nice to be in a break between classes, and that'll be wrapping up in the spring of 2027. But hey, that's getting here. So
Yeah.
still a ways off, about halfway through, but getting there.
Good, good. So I'm excited today to uh, join Steve in some conversation around some things that we're doing at Huntersville that I always lean on Steve for insight and perspective. His just brain is so full and smart. And so we started a conversation at Huntersville for the season of Advent around A Child is Born. Dr. Amy Jill Levine is a noted scholar, a Jewish, who has such insight both into the sacred scriptures of the Hebrew scriptures and New Testament, we call it, and wrote a sermon series or an Advent series around A Child is Born, looking at stories from the scriptures that all seem to have some commonality, some similarities, yet some real powerful messages. And last week at Huntersville, we talked about the story of Abraham or Abram and Sarai, or who becomes Sarah, and kind of looked at that story. And then we're going to look at a story of this Sunday, Manoah and his wife and their son Samson. So,
Well,
Steve,
and
tell me a little bit about these birth stories and what are they? What's the scriptures trying to do for us and tell us about these stories?
I think scripture's always trying to invert our expectations of what power is and how to solve the world's problems. Most of us think if we just had more money, more resources, which does equal more power, we would be able to fix more problems. But what you see in scripture over and over again is, again, that inversion, and that it's actually that the world's problems, or at least a big problem, tends to be solved not through marshaling angel armies,
Mm,
but through a single birth.
wow.
And so that inversion happens over and over again. As you said, how's God going to fix this big problem of making Abraham and Sarah a nation when they have no children, right? When they're nobodies, when they're as good as dead. How's he gonna fulfill that promise? Well, it starts with one birth, right? How are the people of Israel going to be delivered from, in the case of, let's take Samson, I think that's who you're talking about this week. And, how are they going to fight off the Philistines who are just dominating them? Shouldn't God send them a trained army? Well, no, it's going to start with a birth of a
Mm,
child named Samson. How's God going to minister to the people of Israel and prepare them for a new age that will involve having kings? How's God going to do that big work? Well, it's going to start with the birth of a child named Samuel. And so we see this over and over again. And then, of course, when we get the biggest piece of this for Christians is how's God going to save the world? How's God going to fix all the problems and overcome evil, injustice, and oppression in whatever forms they may present themselves, as our United Methodist liturgy says when we baptize someone or ask them to join the church? That's a big task, right?
mm.
Well, it's going to happen through a birth. And so think in terms of, again, inversion, of not looking for that which is big and mighty, but that which is small and insignificant and even helpless. I know one of the one of the joys and one of the real almost traumas of becoming a parent is the helplessness of that child. It utterly depended upon the parents to nurture. It's not like that a human child's just not going to survive without being nurtured. It's weak, it's cold, it's in need, can't do anything for itself. Um, and yet, as a parent, you feel that overwhelming responsibility that you're the one taking care of that, right? But this is how God answers the world's problems. It's not with a fist clenched around a sword, but with a tiny hand reaching up from a crib. That's a that's kind of a crazy idea. And you
So
can use that Sunday if you want, because
thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
So the
Because
first,
I stole it from somebody else.
oh, of
Heard
course,
that
everything
somewhere
we get,
else.
we
Yeah.
steal from somebody,
All
right?
derivative, right?
Yeah. So the theme of the first Sunday of Advent is hope. And this past week we were talking about hope or lack thereof. There's guy Abram moves because God tells him to, tells him if you'll move, I'll make of you a great nation. I'll do this
Mhm.
remarkable work through you. The only thing you've got to do is you've got to believe me enough to pack up the moving van and
Mhm.
move. So he does, and the promise at this point in Abram's life feels, I mean, we're old, we're well past childbearing years. Sarah is barren, and yet God says, "Hey, hold out. Got hope. We're going to bring this child." So Abram and Sarah do what so often we want to do. They try to take things into their own hands.
Mhm.
Can't trust you, God, enough to do what you do. We've got to figure this thing out. So they end up having a surrogate through Hagar, and Hagar produces a child with Abram. That child's name is Ishmael, and Ishmael, as it turns out, God says, "I'll use that child too," but it doesn't negate what I promised to do through Abram and Sarah. They're going to have a child, and that
Yeah.
child will be great as well. And so it sets up this fascinating conversation. Abram, Sarah, these people come, they're angelic, they're divine beings. They come and uh, Abram greets them with hospitality and welcome. And they promise, they say, hey, next time we come, Sarah's going to be pregnant and you'll have this child. So sets off this fascinating journey of faith with Abram and Sarah, and this child Isaac is born to them, and Isaac is said to be the child of the promise. The promise that God had made to Abram is, Abram, I'm going to bless the whole world through your progeny, and this sets off that conversation that through Isaac and then the descendants of Isaac all the way down will eventually trace all of that to Jesus. As you have kind of started the conversation with us today, um, in the midst of hopelessness, in the midst of how in the world are we going to get out of this mess, God says, I'll bring a baby into it.
Well, and I won't, many of us have moved, right? But I think the better word there is dislocation.
Mm,
And that God shows up in the dislocation. And you don't have to move to feel dislocated physically, right? You can be fired from your job. You can be facing retirement, like somebody I know.
hey,
You
watch it.
can become, any number of things can bring about this dislocation about what, like, I don't recognize where I am anymore. And it's often in those places when we don't recognize where we are anymore that God's Spirit is able to move in ways that we wouldn't recognize otherwise. And so often when we feel dislocation, we get worried, we get antsy, we get stressed. Uh, Maybe if you're feeling dislocated, maybe look for God's revelation in the midst of that to see what comes of it. But
One of the things that I said to the congregation this past Sunday is at some point Abram and Sarah were the deepest longing, the deepest desire of their heart was to have this child. Sarah would have felt um, incomplete. She would have felt like a total
different
failure.
culture, different time. And I want to make that very clear that if in today's time and age, if you're someone who is childless, that's not a curse.
And we have to say that, yes, over and over and
And that's
over.
not doesn't mean God has abandoned or God doesn't love you, or if you made the choice not to have children because you didn't feel called to have children. Nothing wrong with that. But this idea of in the ancient world, it was looked upon as, I mean, it's a social security, it's a safety net. Who's going to take care of you if you have no children of your own? So
Right.
it's a different dynamic, all those in the thousands of years ago that Abraham lived.
So we were kind of taken about, and I'm a Harry Potter fan, and there's a scene in the first or second movie. There's a mirror called the Mirror of Erised, and the mirror is there to, when you look in the mirror, it reveals your deepest longing, your deepest desire. When Harry looks into the mirror, what does he see? He sees his parents who died really early in his life. His deepest desire, longing, is to be reunited and to be surrounded by the love of his parents. And that was what Harry longed for, desired for. Ron, Harry's friend, on the other hand, looked in the mirror and saw himself as the captain of the Quidditch team or the football team of his day. He's recognized as an athlete, as a leader. He's found his spot. And so I think what the scriptures in this story of Abram and Sarah is encourages us. What are the deepest desires, the deepest longings of our hearts? And we related that to the idea of hope. What are you hoping for? And I want to introduce that because this coming Sunday, the second theme of Advent, the second Sunday of Advent, is peace, and would just simply invite all of us to ponder what is the deepest longing of our heart, deepest need, deepest sense, and what would peace look like for you? So we introduced this week the story of Manoah, his wife, and their son that they're going to have. His name is Samson.
And this is Judges chapter 13.
Judges chapter 13. So, Steve, help us with that story. What is this story trying to say to us? God sends these messengers to Manoah's wife, and
Well, again, there's a pattern, right? Sarah was barren. Manoah's wife Zorah. No, he's from a man of Zorah, tribe of Danites. His wife is barren. So again, you'll see this, right? You'll see this again with Samuel's birth. Basically, bringing life where there should have been no life, where life shouldn't have been possible, where it shouldn't have happened. And the and you guess you see this repeated with Mary, right? A virgin shouldn't be pregnant. It's just not how it works. But it speaks to the miraculous intervention of God again through the smallness of things, not through the largest of things, but the smallest of things. Which is something I think we should always, so many times we won't, again, look for the big things, but just as, I know the conversations around gratitude, the more granular we get in gratitude, the more grateful we become. The smaller things we look at. Were you grateful that you had teeth to brush this morning?
mm,
That you had running water, that you had a bed to sleep in. I know it's easy to be grateful for. I'm grateful for my family, my work, my country, all these big things, but to get granular, right? So look, again, God so often in scriptures revealed through the small things. So we start with the small thing, and then we get this interaction between an angel sent to be a messenger, right? I think that should resonate to speak a truth into the life, to pronounce that which will come. We get some jockeying position between Manoah and the angel about who are you? What does this mean? What do we need to do? But ultimately, you also get a foretelling of what the child will do. And then, of course, you get the birth of the child. And in particular, in the book of Judges, Samson is selected again because of before birth is to be set aside and some of the things that are spelled out here, like no strong drink, this or that, then then you end up with what we call a Nazarite or a Nazarene, sorry, Nazarene, uh, and the which is someone specifically set aside by God to do God's specific work. And part of the biblical story of Jesus will be, of course, set in Nazareth, and there's a little bit of play on words. Nazarite it should make us think of Nazarene, that Jesus is set aside from before all time to do the work God has appointed him to do.
Mm. And Samson's life is going to be filled with this constant struggle with the Philistines. You mentioned that group of people earlier. The Philistines are a group of people that were a boat people. They came over from across the Mediterranean Sea, settled in, and would have been on that Gaza side. We know that even that side today. The Philistines were a warrior people who dominated the land called Israel for many, many years, were a constant threat and a source of, constant distraction for the people called Israel. And Samson was in a way we call him a judge. He was an answer for God for this particular crisis in Israel's history. Samson is literally raised up to be God's answer for that particular moment. And it eventually leads us to a conversation, I think, where is peace?
Hmm.
Where is peace in the midst? Is peace absence of conflict? I don't think any of us can ever look at or ever expect a place in our lives where there's not going to be challenge.
So,
We're
yeah,
always going to be dealing with
which
stuff.
which then gives us the opportunity to talk about, especially in the Old Testament, the word peace is most often we translate that from shalom, which doesn't mean the absence of conflict. It has more the connotation of wholeness or completeness. So what does it mean to be whole or complete? So and when you're that's a different way of thinking about it, right? It doesn't mean that I think if you're setting out to sea, right, and you're in a boat that has all the hatches open, and a storm comes up, you'd want you'd close all the hatches to make to seal off the boat to make it as whole as possible, and that would allow the boat to navigate the waves, not be sunk. The shalom is a similar thing. So many times we have such deep, dark crevices in our souls and our hearts, our beings, that allow for hurt and pain to take root. And when what Christ calls us to is a wholeness of being, a recreation of being that makes us into a complete person that restores our humanity, doesn't deny it, in such a way then that we can navigate the world's hardships with shalom. And so peace is possible in that regard, even in the midst of conflict and severe conflict.
Yeah, I think what we're trying to draw is the hope that we have is not that everything is going to be hunky dory. Everything is going to be just as we would want them to be. The hope that we have is that we have a peace. So many times the New Testament, Paul in particular, uses that phrase and says, "May the peace of Christ
Hmm.
be with you. May the
Yeah,
mind and heart of Christ be in you." It's a recognition that nothing is ever going to be perfect as we would want them to be. But can we recognize God's presence in the midst of those? And that's a deeper hope than, well, I just hope everything's going to work out okay.
right. It's rooted in something beyond ourselves and a power beyond ourselves that then provides us a way to navigate whatever oceans we may be sailing.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you
Then
wouldn't go,
we'll
I hope
get
you wouldn't go
eventually
out.
to that. Go ahead.
I said, I hope you wouldn't go out on that ocean with a hole in the bottom of your boat,
Right.
right? You'd want a
Right.
complete structure down there, and that's part of what spiritual practices are meant to do, is to connect us deeper with who Jesus is, who God is, the Holy Spirit, to make us these, oh, to make us as complete in Christ as we can be. And therefore, what does it mean? Will hardship or peril or sword separate us from the love of God? No, it won't.
So the third theme of Advent is joy. And so when you go first, hope, and then peace, joy is that third week, love's the fourth week. I'd be honest, Steve, having grown up in the different tradition, non-United Methodist tradition, to even the thought of Advent never really never really meant that much to me. This year, as I'm probably going to be my last year leading a church through the season of Advent. Somehow, these themes are coming a little more meaning for me this year, and trying to connect that understanding of hope and peace and joy and love. Um, I appreciate what this sermon series is doing for me, is helping me connect it in my own mind and heart, and I hope then to help a congregation and help some of our listeners today really reflect on what is this season all about, and how do we ponder these really important themes.
And of course, at Denver, we're in a different place, and it is interesting how different churches have their own traditions and their own way of being, even though we're both United Methodist churches. Denver, we've always, at least in my time as pastor there, um, we've dedicated two separate Sundays for music. I'm blessed to have an amazing music program, great leadership with Aaron Scholl and Leanne Callahan and Nancy Tabb, and wonderful AV team. So, we're not in a sermon series, but we are in Advent, and all of these are meant to prepare us, whether it's a sermon series or music. It's all worship, and it's meant to open us up to the coming of Christ into our hearts once again. So this Sunday, just a plug, we will be having our choir cantata in the sanctuary at 9 a.m. and 11. These folks work so hard, and I encourage folk, if you're in the area, please come on. But if you're a member of Denver United Methodist Church, you're supposed to be there. And we are excited to our choir. I just really thrilled with that ministry and want to give a shout out to them. Uh, we've seen growth in our choir. So many new members have come, and wonderful voices. So again, no, we're greatly blessed to have that, and very thankful that we have that type of leadership in the music area. And then the next Sunday will be our praise team will be doing their Christmas presentation. And I know when I was in divinity school, our worship instructor talked about basically don't even say the word Christmas till you get to Christmas. Don't sing Christmas hymns till you get to Christmas. And I tried that for a year or two, and it didn't work.
No.
So it's yeah. I think whatever prepares us to be more open to the presence of Christ in our lives is what counts.
Yeah, so music takes the stage, so to speak, more on the 14th and 21st for here. I want to do also give a shout out to Charles Morrow and Maria Houghton and a lot of folks who just work so hard. And music will be really much more prevalent in the service on the 14th and 21st. And you do, man. You've got great music folks, and I know your folks will be excited about experiencing that music, and our folks will on the 14th and 21st more here. This Sunday we have, as is our tradition, on the first Sunday of each month, one service. It's a unity service, we call it. We have breakfast at 9:30 and then one service at 10 o'clock. And it really has become a highlight for us combining the folks that maybe don't normally see each other when we have two services. It's really a good thing for us, and I'm grateful for all those who will participate.
Yeah. And just a note for people at Denver, traditionally we have communion the first Sunday of the month. We will not be having communion this Sunday. We will, of course, be having communion at all services on Christmas Eve.
As will we on Christmas Eve at the 11 o'clock service, 11 p.m. service. So, well, man, this is good stuff. I hope our people are starting as even here early in December. We're turning our minds and our hearts to what is God saying to us each year. We know Christmas is coming. Sometimes it kind of sneaks up on us because we're so busy leading
It,
up
it
to it.
is it is an interesting cultural schedule, and this year with Thanksgiving being about as late as it can be, to make that to go from Thanksgiving Day to the first Sunday in Advent was a little jarring. I felt dislocated myself
Hmm.
Sunday morning. So, but it does take a little bit to get our heads and hearts turned towards that manger. But that's where we're heading.
So let me finish today with one more request for me, for you, for all of us. Looking in that mirror, what is the deepest desire? What is the deepest longing of our heart? Is it for some particular gift at Christmas? Is it for some relationship to be restored? Is it for some economic something that we need? Let me offer to you that we ponder what would peace look like for us in our lives? What is a peace that would pass understanding? Ponder that as you think about coming to both Denver, Huntersville, wherever you go to church this Sunday. Where's your peace?
Well, thank you, Paul, and we'll talk again soon.
Yeah, brother. Take care, man. Have
All
a
right.
good night.
God bless you all.